When the church bells rang on Sunday morning in Oak Grove, Virginia, the Williams family could always be found sitting in the front row. In this small town, Edward and Elizabeth Williams were known as pillars of the community. Edward had served as the manager of the local bank for almost 40 years, and Elizabeth ran the Church Women's Association, overseeing charitable activities. The white two-story house they built in the 1980s, surrounded by a well-maintained lawn and seasonal flower beds, was recognized as an exemplary home in the town. Megan grew up as an only daughter in this orderly world. From a young age, she carried the full weight of her parents' expectations, was honored as a model student in Sunday school, served as class representative in high school, and graduated with honors in business from the University of Virginia. Her life seemed to be moving perfectly along the track laid out by her parents. "Megan, you're our pride and joy," Elizabeth would often say. But there was always a condition behind those words. "A well-brought-up girl like you must establish a proper family." Edward was the same. His words were always filled with expectations for the future. "My daughter makes the right choices. You'll marry a wonderful man and build a respectable family." Megan was entering her 6th year working at a major marketing firm in Washington, D.C. She was making her mark in the glamorous advertising industry and was valued as a promising young talent. Her parents felt a sense of loneliness at their daughter's independence but were proud that she was steadily advancing in her career. However, their true expectations lay elsewhere. "Will you bring a new boyfriend home for Christmas?" Every year when her mother asked this question over the phone, Megan could only respond with a wry smile. For her parents, their daughter's success ultimately culminated in marriage to a man from a good family. Sometimes Megan felt sorry that she couldn't meet her parents' expectations. She was devoted to her work and passionate about building her career. Romantic relationships were always secondary. That changed when she met Thomas Hendricks, who joined the company as the new creative director. He was a person who charmed everyone around him with his refined demeanor and sharp creativity, and Megan was immediately drawn to his talent. The two began working together on a major client project, often staying late at the office to develop ideas. "Your ideas are truly wonderful," Thomas said. In the meeting room, when they were alone after her presentation. "I'm always impressed." To Megan, his words sounded like more than mere courtesy. They were words that genuinely appreciated her abilities. She felt comfortable with this form of recognition, which was different from her parents' expectations. Eventually, their relationship evolved beyond work. Their first kiss happened after a company party celebrating a successful project. Megan got a ride home in Thomas's car, and he kissed her in front of her apartment. Since that night, they became lovers. Thomas embodied a glamorous and free lifestyle. He took Megan to upscale restaurants and sometimes invited her on spontaneous weekend trips. The time spent with him felt like liberation from her previously stable way of life. "I'd like to introduce you to my parents," Megan said one day, about 6 months into their relationship. After hesitating slightly, Thomas replied, "Isn't it too soon? I think we need more time to get to know each other." Megan accepted his words. Indeed, their relationship had just begun. Plus, she herself felt no small amount of anxiety about introducing Thomas to her conservative parents. His free-spirited lifestyle might not be compatible with her parents' values. As summer passed and autumn arrived, changes began to appear in Megan's health. She started suffering from morning sickness and unusual fatigue. At first, she thought it was just overwork, but when the symptoms persisted, she decided to get examined at a hospital. "Congratulations, Ms. Williams. You're pregnant." Megan was speechless at the doctor's words. Having children wasn't part of her life plan. At least not now. She thought that would come later, after marriage. But there was definitely a new life growing inside her. That night, Megan invited Thomas to dinner and told him the truth. Though nervous, she proposed that they face this situation together. However, Thomas's reaction greatly betrayed her expectations. Megan, I'm not ready to raise a child yet. His voice was cold. You know that my work is at a crucial stage right now. And he paused and stared at the wine glass on the table. To be honest, I never thought of our relationship as that serious. Megan froze. The man she had opened her heart to was so easily willing to abandon her and the child. The next day, Thomas left the company citing a new job offer and disappeared from her life. He changed his contact information and deleted his social media accounts. Left alone, Megan was overwhelmed by a deep sense of despair. However, a strong determination was already growing within her. The determination to have this child and raise it alone. She understood this wouldn't be an easy path. Especially when she thought about her parents' reaction, she felt a tightening anxiety in her chest. On the way to her family home in Oak Grove, Megan's heart was racing. Sweat seeped into her hands gripping the steering wheel, and occasionally she would place a hand on her stomach and take deep breaths. 12 weeks pregnant. There were no visible changes yet, but Megan was strongly aware of the miracle happening inside her body. When she saw her childhood home surrounded by white picket fences, she pulled over to the side of the road to make her final mental preparations. A confrontation with her parents was unavoidable. The moment of shattering the image of the good daughter she had built up over many years was now imminent. "Hello, Mom." Elizabeth opened the door and welcomed her daughter with a smile. "Megan, why didn't you let us know you were coming? Your father will be surprised too." In the living room, Edward looked up from his newspaper and peered at his daughter over his glasses. "An unexpected visit. I have something important to talk about," Megan said, suppressing her trembling voice. "I wanted to tell you both in person." The three sat at the dining table. Elizabeth brewed coffee and cut slices of homemade apple pie. A familiar scene. A calm prelude to what was about to happen. "So, what did you want to talk about?" Elizabeth asked as she set down her coffee cup. "Did you get a promotion at work? Or?" Her face lit up with expectation. "A new boyfriend perhaps?" Megan took a deep breath. "Actually, I'm pregnant." Silence fell over the room. Elizabeth's hand froze, and Edward's eyebrows suddenly drew together. "Are there plans for marriage?" Edward immediately asked. His voice carried a wish that this was all some kind of misunderstanding. Megan shook her head. "I'm no longer with the child's father. He doesn't want to take responsibility." Her words froze the air in the room. The color drained from Elizabeth's face, and Edward suddenly stood up. "So you're saying you'll become a single mother?" Elizabeth's voice was low and carried a dangerous tone. Megan nodded slowly. "Yes, Mom. I intend to have this child." "A single mother? How shameful." Elizabeth raised her voice. Her eyes mixed with anger and humiliation. "How can we face people at church? That you would commit such a mistake." "It's not a mistake." Megan protested. "This is my choice. While it wasn't planned, this child is innocent." Edward stared out the window and let out a deep sigh. "You made your choice. Don't expect any help." His words were as cold as ice. "Dad," Megan said with a trembling voice. "I need my parents' support. Now more than ever." "Support?" Elizabeth scoffed. "You've ruined your own future. You've trampled on all the values we spent decades teaching you." Tears streamed down Megan's cheeks. "Please, try to understand. I love this child. Even though I haven't met them yet, I already love them deeply." Edward gave his daughter a stern look. "Megan, if you make such a choice, you have no place in this house. No place as our daughter." "Edward." Elizabeth looked at her husband. But her protest was merely for show. It was clear from the coldness in her eyes that she shared the same opinion. "Are you serious?" Megan asked in disbelief. "You're kicking me out? You're an adult. You must take responsibility for your choices," Edward said calmly. "We cannot accept someone in such a situation in our home." Megan rose from the table. Her legs were unsteady, and she had to hold on to the wall. "I understand. I'll go get some of my things." She went to the bedroom she had used since childhood. The walls were adorned with high school awards and college graduation photos. Evidence of once being her parents' pride. Megan packed a small bag with minimal personal items and took one last look around the room. When she returned downstairs, her parents stood unmoved in the same spot. Their expressions showed more anger and disappointment than sadness. "Goodbye," Megan said in a small voice. No one answered. The sound of the front door closing echoed throughout the house. Megan stood in the driveway in front of her childhood home, realizing that her life had completely changed. As she got into the rental car, she checked the rearview mirror, thinking her parents might be watching from the window. But the curtains remained closed. Back in her small DC apartment, Megan collapsed onto her bed and cried for a long time. She placed her hand on her pregnant belly and whispered in a small voice, "It's okay, I'll protect you. We'll manage somehow." After her tears dried, Megan opened her laptop and began researching support for single parents. She was surprised by how little information there was. She hadn't expected resources for people in her situation to be so limited. That night, on the edge of despair, a small flame of determination lit in Megan's heart. "If there's nothing to help people like me, then I'll create something." Emma came into the world on a quiet winter morning. After 7 hours of labor, Megan held that small life in her arms alone and felt a love and responsibility she had never experienced before. Her friend Jennifer was by her bedside. She was the only colleague who had supported Megan after she reported her pregnancy to the company. "She's beautiful," Jennifer said, touching the baby's cheek. "Yes," Megan smiled despite her exhausted expression. "Emma. My little warrior." 8 weeks after giving birth, Megan registered with a temp agency and found clerical work with flexible hours. The salary was less than half of what she earned before, but she managed to start a life by hiring a babysitter and paying rent with her meager savings. The quiet hours after putting Emma to bed at night became her creative time. Spreading her laptop on the kitchen table, Megan began building an online community site for single parents. Her experience at the marketing company helped with launching the website and attracting visitors. SingleParentCircle.com, with this simple name, she began providing a place for information exchange, a database of support resources by region, and a forum for single parents to interact. At first, there were few visitors and sporadic posts, but Megan patiently continued adding content every night. "Emma, someday we'll help many people with this small endeavor," Megan whispered softly to her daughter sleeping in the crib. "Thanks to you, I found a new mission." The days with 6-month-old Emma in her arms were harsh. Work, childcare, and launching a new business. Sleep deprivation and financial anxiety constantly followed Megan like a shadow. However, the membership of the website gradually began to increase, and she felt that her articles and information were actually helping people. One day, while researching a database to answer a community member's question, Megan noticed one of the biggest challenges single parents face. It was the lack of time management and emergency support. She took out paper and pen and began sketching ideas. An app specialized for single parent schedule management and resource sharing. That was the beginning of the Parent Pal concept. However, technical knowledge was needed to turn the idea into reality. Megan had no programming experience. She shared this idea on the community bulletin board and began looking for collaborators. "I'm a project manager at an IT company," came a reply a few days later. It was from a woman named Sarah. "I'm also a single mother." I'm interested in your idea. In their first video call, Megan and Sarah immediately hit it off. Sarah understood the struggle of working in the IT industry while raising a 3-year-old son. She sympathized with Megan's vision and offered technical support. The two formed a partnership and used weekends and evenings to develop plans for the app. "This isn't just an app," Megan said. "This will be a lifeline for single parents like us." Sarah's technical knowledge combined with Megan's marketing experience, and the development of Parent Pal progressed steadily. Megan invested her small savings, and Sarah generously contributed her free time. By the time Emma celebrated her first birthday, the app prototype was complete. The first version had limited functions but provided practical features such as schedule management for single parents, searching for support services in the neighborhood, and building emergency contact networks. They invited Single Parent Circle community members to participate as beta testers and collected feedback. "This is what I've been looking for a long time. It's wonderful to be able to manage my child's schedule and my own schedule in one place. The emergency babysitter search function is really helpful." Encouraged by the positive responses, Megan and Sarah gained confidence and made further improvements. While still making a living through temp work during the day, Megan worked on improving the app night after night. Watching Emma play, she expanded her hopes for the future. Launching a startup was more difficult than she had anticipated. They faced funding shortages many times, and technical issues occurred frequently. However, Megan and Sarah's perseverance began to pay off. The number of app downloads steadily increased, and monthly subscription income from users gradually stabilized. By the time Emma celebrated her third birthday, Parent Pal had become reputable among single parents. A local news program featured this innovative app, and Megan gave her first television interview. "This app was born out of my own necessity," she told the camera. Single parents struggle daily with lack of time, resources, and support. Parent Pal hopes to bring a little light to their everyday lives. This interview led to a Silicon Valley investor contacting Megan. Alex Chen, a venture capitalist, was impressed by her vision and perseverance and offered a $2.5 million investment. "I want to invest in founders like you," Alex said during a meeting at his office. "People with passion and purpose who create products that solve real needs." With the investment, Megan and Sarah could finally devote themselves full-time to the business. They rented office space and hired a small team. Parent Pal grew rapidly and began to acquire users nationwide. By the time Emma entered elementary school, Parent Pal had surpassed 1 million downloads. The app had evolved from a simple scheduling tool into a comprehensive platform for single parents. Its features ranged widely, including support for forming shared childcare groups, providing discounted services, and access to educational resources. 5 years after founding the company, Megan was leading a team of 30 people as CEO. Sometimes, looking at the view of Washington, D.C. from her office window, she felt surprised by her own journey. An idea born in her most desperate moment was changing many people's lives. "Mom, look!" Emma came running into the office after school. She proudly showed off her math test with a red star mark, evidence of a perfect score. Megan hugged her daughter. "That's wonderful, Emma. You're such a hard worker." That night, Megan and 8-year-old Emma shared dinner in the spacious living room of their newly purchased home in Georgetown. The Potomac River was visible from the window, and the room was bathed in warm light. Their new life had become stable and fulfilling in ways Megan could never have imagined before. However, while sitting at the table, Megan occasionally remembered that last night at the family home in Oak Grove. There had been no contact with her parents since that day. She sometimes wondered if her parents knew about their granddaughter's existence, if they had heard of her success, and most of all, if they regretted their judgment that day. On a quiet Sunday morning in Georgetown, Megan and Emma were making pancakes and planning their day. They had promised to go to the zoo to see the newly born lion cubs. "Mom, I thought of a name for the lion," Emma said as she poured maple syrup on her pancakes. How about Misty? Megan smiled. That's a lovely name. Why don't you suggest it to the people at the zoo? Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Megan frowned. She wasn't expecting visitors on a Sunday morning. Just a minute, Emma, she said. When she opened the door, Megan froze in place. Standing on her doorstep were her parents, whom she hadn't seen in 8 years. Edward's hair had turned completely white, and his back had rounded slightly from his once upright posture. Elizabeth had lost weight, and her face was etched with deep wrinkles. They had both visibly aged. Megan, Elizabeth said in a small voice. Mom. Dad. Megan stumbled over her words. She wasn't prepared for this. Various emotions washed over her like waves: anger, sadness, and strangely, a bit of relief. May we come in? Edward asked. His voice lacked the strictness Megan remembered, and instead had a certain fragility to it. After a moment's hesitation, Megan widened the door. Please do. As she led her parents to the living room, Megan felt her heart pounding. Questions swirled in her mind about how they had found her address and why they had appeared now. Mom, who is it? Emma's voice called from the kitchen. Megan's parents stared in the direction of the voice, and tears welled up in Elizabeth's eyes. My daughter, Megan answered with a trembling voice. Emma, come here please. Emma came out from the kitchen and looked at the two unfamiliar elderly people with curious eyes. Hello, she greeted politely. Emma, these people are. Megan took a deep breath. Your grandma and grandpa. Emma's eyes widened. Megan had barely told her daughter about her parents, simply saying they lived far away. My grandma and grandpa? Emma asked, puzzled. Elizabeth put her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back tears. Yes, that's right. Emma. Emma, would you go back to the dining table and finish your breakfast? Megan told her daughter. We'll all talk later. Emma made a face of discontent but did as she was told. Megan seated her parents on the sofa. Why so suddenly? She asked quietly. I was worried. Elizabeth suddenly became emotional. I wanted to know about you. About Emma too. Family should help each other. Megan blinked. Family should help each other? Her voice turned cold. What did you do 8 years ago when I really needed help? Edward looked up and met her eyes. Megan, we came here to apologize. Apologize? And, to ask for help, he added, his voice diminishing. Elizabeth took her husband's hand and took a deep breath. Things have changed. Your father invested his retirement money, but he lost everything. Not gambling, Edward quickly added. Stock investments. But the result was the same. We can't even pay our mortgage anymore. Elizabeth continued, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago. The medical bills have been piling up. Megan sank deep into her chair, overwhelmed by her parents' confession. So when we read about your company in the newspaper. Edward broke off. I was proud, Megan. And realized how wrong we had been. Proud? Megan's voice was bitter. You threw me out of the house. When I was at my most vulnerable. We were wrong, Edward bowed his head. We want your forgiveness. How did you find me? Megan changed the question. When your interview was broadcast on television, a neighbor told us, Elizabeth explained. We started looking for you after that. Emma came in from the kitchen. Mom, are Grandma and Grandpa coming to the zoo with us? Tension filled the room. Megan looked at her daughter, then at her parents. She read the expectation and fear in their eyes. Complex emotions swirled within her, hatred, anger, and curiously, a faint sympathy. Emma, I need to have an adult conversation with Grandma and Grandpa first, Megan gently told her daughter. Let's postpone the zoo for today. Emma's shoulders dropped, but she quickly brightened. Then, can I show Grandma and Grandpa my new roller skating trick? Megan gave a small laugh. Later. Would you play in your room for now? After Emma left, Megan turned back to her parents. Do you remember how you treated me when I became a single mother? Her voice was calm, but beneath it was the pain she had suppressed for years. Edward raised his face. I remember it every day. It's my greatest regret. We were wrong, Elizabeth said quietly. At that time, we were only thinking about how people at church would look at us, about our reputation. We lost sight of what truly mattered. Megan looked out the window. The spring sunshine illuminated Georgetown's old streets. For a long time, she had imagined this moment, her parents apologizing, and her coldly rejecting them. But when actually facing it, her heart was leaning in an unexpected direction. I accept your apology, Megan said slowly. But it will take time to rebuild trust. Hope lit Elizabeth's face. Really? I will provide financial assistance, Megan continued. But I can't immediately repair our relationship. For Emma's sake, and for my own. Edward nodded deeply. We don't expect more than that. Just giving us a chance is enough. And, if you would allow us to see Emma occasionally. Elizabeth tentatively added. Megan considered. Her own childhood, her complex relationship with her parents, and now, what she herself had learned as a parent. Did she have the courage to choose healing over revenge? Let's start slowly, she finally said. Beginning with going to the zoo with Emma today. 2 years passed, and the seasons had turned to autumn. In a Washington, D.C. park, where colored leaves were dancing in the air, 10-year-old Emma was throwing a frisbee with her grandpa. Edward's movements were slow, but his smile conveyed how much he truly enjoyed spending time with his granddaughter. Seated on a bench, Megan and Elizabeth watched the two. Emma is such an active child, Elizabeth said, holding her coffee cup with both hands. Her hair had turned completely white, but her eyes had more warmth than before. Her breast cancer treatment had been successful, and now she only needed regular checkups. Yes, she has athletic abilities I don't possess, Megan smiled. Probably inherited from Dad. A brief silence flowed between them. What once would have been uncomfortable had now become peaceful. Thanks to Megan's financial support, her parents had been able to keep their home in Oak Grove. Edward, diagnosed with gambling addiction, had joined a treatment program at Megan's suggestion. After more than a year of steady efforts, he was facing his problems and beginning his path to recovery. At the support group last week, Elizabeth suddenly said, a young single mother came. Her parents rejected her too. Megan stared at her mother. I told her, you have value. Your choices have value, Elizabeth's eyes welled with tears. Then, I also told her the story of a mother who deeply hurt her daughter. Megan took her mother's hand. This was the most significant change in her parents, especially her mother. Elizabeth had started a single-parent support group at church and was working hard to confront the prejudices she once held. Back then, we acted out of fear, Elizabeth quietly continued. Bound by appearances, tradition, those kinds of things, we lost sight of what was truly precious. Across the park, Edward was teaching Emma how to throw a frisbee. His laughter carried on the wind. He's changed too, Megan said, watching her father. Thanks to you, Elizabeth replied. If you hadn't forgiven us, I don't think he would have sought treatment. ParentPal continued to grow and now had over 5 million users nationwide. Recently, Megan had begun meeting with policymakers to advocate for expanded legal support for single parents. Her personal experience and business success had given her a strong voice. Last year, she published a book titled Rewriting Your Story: How to Turn Challenges into Opportunities, which became a national bestseller. I have to go now, Meghan stood up, checking her watch. I have a panel discussion at Congress today. Of course, Elizabeth also stood. We'll have dinner with Emma and put her to bed. Emma ran over and hugged Meghan. Mom, Grandpa taught me how to throw a frisbee. That's wonderful, Meghan stroked her daughter's hair. I'll be late tonight, so listen to what Grandma and Grandpa say. As she left, Meghan turned back and watched the three of them. The journey to complete reconciliation was still ongoing, but they had already overcome many walls. The wounds might not be fully healed, but a new understanding and respect had sprouted. Meghan walked away with a smile. The most important lesson she had learned was that choosing healing over revenge requires far more strength. And that strength was the key to true success.